All right. Once again, we want to talk to you on the subject of words of the Master Jesus. Words of the Master Jesus. And as we've talked to you in the past, the human mind, humanity, equals mind. And we can see our people moving in the direction. We are an opportunity looking for meaning. We're all in search. We're on a search. If we are trying to find God in our life. The Sanskrit root for man is mind, or woman, mind, and we live in three dimensions of time. We live in the past, we live in the present, or we live in the future. And as we live in the past, present, or future, we are moving to God. God is hidden. God is hidden inside, outside, everywhere. And we're a bridge or a ladder or a passage in search of God. And as you can see, when we find God, we can rest. But not until we do. We're on a journey. We're on a path. And that path, hopefully, will lead to God. And as you can see, the whole sole purpose of our spiritual journey, any spiritual journey, is the whole purpose of the spiritual journey is how do we go beyond ourselves? How do we surpass ourselves? How do we transcend and move to the next level of our being? All right. Now that we have a good picture of where we're going, we can take a look now at where we want to go with Jesus' message. Again, Jesus' message equals how do we surpass ourselves? How do we surpass ourselves? And we've been talking to you over the last several messages on words from the Master about the tension that occurs when we try to go on this journey. A lot of times that tension results in a sort of anxiety. And that anxiety results in a sort of conflict, internal conflict. And that internal conflict usually gives us a certain dis-ease. And I would say, or disease, D-I-S-E-A-S-E. And that's where the mind comes in. Mind, to a certain extent, can equal disease. And we're trying to move always to a higher state of awareness. And this higher state of awareness, again, comes back to the question of how do I surpass myself? And why do I need to surpass myself? Which leads us into the whole notion of the levels of the mind. Let's begin by looking at the 5 levels of the mind. Now, this is very important as we begin to take a look at where we are here on the spectrum, the first level of the mind, we would call the pre-mind. The pre-mind. This is the mind of the child. This is the mind where of nothing but innocence. I-N-N-O-C-I-N. Innocent. The child is innocent. There's no anxiety here. And the child is generally at ease. The mind has not developed. There's no ego. And to a certain extent, no mind. So a child is able to enjoy life and sort of like an animal-like state. That's the beauty of the child's mind. We're talking about roughly 3 years old, about here. The next level is the collective mind. C-O-L-L-E-C-T-I-V-E, mind. Now the collective mind takes you into another whole dimension of awareness. When you get to the collective mind, what has to happen is that you move from the childish mind to a mind where there is, for the first time, what I call duality. Duality comes into the picture. A sort of identity, ID, begins to develop. This is the second layer, or dimension. L-A-Y, layer. And you've left the childlike state and you've moved into the collective state. This is society. Society comes in, a group, or a clan. And somehow or another, the notion of family comes in the picture. And you certainly had, at this particular point, you'll start thinking of others. You start sacrificing your own interests for the interests of the society. The critical component of this dimension is civilization. Civilization takes off. You become civilized. And that civilization begins to make up a major part of your thinking. The tribe becomes important. And so you're no longer as selfish as you used to be. Your schooling comes in, your family training, your teachers, your society experiences, your church, the nation. This collective mind begins to grow. And most people kind of get stuck right here. While in the collective mind is the individual mind. Now the individual mind is, most people don't get out of the collective mind. They're kind of stuck there. But when they, but let me tell you one more thing about the collective mind before we move on. I think what we'll do is we'll look at this in our next lesson, the next level here. But let's elaborate a little bit more on the collective mind. This is the mind where labels become important. This is the mind where the outside dominates. What people think of you begin to dominate. This is also the mind of what Friedrich Nietzsche called the camel. Millions and millions of people carrying huge burdens around on their back. Not going anywhere particular, but life kind of becomes a desert. So you can see hundreds of people walking around, and do my little crude picture of a camel. This is a beast of burden. And on our back is huge problems and concerns. A house, a car, a job. That's our existence every day. Sort of like it's dull. It's a dry existence. It's kind of dead. But millions of us go on carrying heavy loads, and somehow or another, we're respected for it, for the many loads that we carry. Again, the word respect means look again. And we want to be seen. We want to be thought well of because we can carry large loads. And this becomes our world. And this is, we began to be pigeonholed. Mainly if we just work, take care of family. If we take care of home, our parents, and then we die. Maybe had some vacations every year, but routine becomes very important in the collective mind. We really become somewhat of a slave to tradition, norms, and history. Our legacy becomes important. And we're going to take a look. Our next lesson, we'll take a look at the next 3 levels of mind.